I'm here to talk about John Shakespeare today, William's father. We hear a lot about him, but perhaps not so much about an influence on his life that must have been quite impressive. We know that John was a country boy who came into town. He married well, Mary Arden, and ended up as a glover, but more importantly, he worked his way through the dignitaries of the town, and when William was 4, he became the bailiff or the mayor of Stratford, as we call them today. Perhaps mostly the most important man in the town. And clearly it would have been important that he, as the important man, would have brought William into this building, into this room in the Guildhall, to show him around and to introduce him to people, influence people. He was also the magistrate of the town as such and acted on behalf of the king, and therefore William may have seen him in the court acting out his part in it, and that's where William would have got ideas for his plays in later life. But more importantly, I'd like us to perhaps think about something a little bit more interesting, because we have to ask ourselves, where did Shakespeare get the characterizations that he wrote about in his play? And if we think about John Shakespeare, of course, he was this preeminent man in the town, but very soon he ended up in a lot of trouble. We know that he was caught illegally dealing in wool. And wool, of course, in Tudor times was the currency, basically, of the time. And anybody caught illegally dealing in it would be fined, as John was, and would have been in a whole heap of trouble with the government. It's called brogging. Furthermore, of course, he was caught money lending. Now, we have to think about money lending in different terms to today, because there were no banks or building societies, so people would have had to go to somebody to lend money. But of course, there was a limit. People thought that up to 10% was reasonable. Above that was usury. And so if we examine some of William's plays, we come to The Merchant of Venice, and the central character, of course, is Shylock the Jew. And Shylock, of course, was a money lender, and much more importantly, of course, he was a usurer. So where did he get that idea from? How did he character? He would have seen the whole gamut of how John would have been treated in the town, having been caught out usuring. And therefore, I believe that when you look at Shylock, you're in fact looking at John Shakespeare, or part of his character. Because how else and why else would William look elsewhere to devise the character? So John was very famous in the town. He lived out his life. His son eventually got a coat of arms for him, and he died peacefully sometime in the early 1600s. But nonetheless, I think he was a greater influence than we believe to William, and we have to pay thanks perhaps to his background as to where we find Shakespeare in his day.